The president traveling to ground zero in the opioid epidemic, New Hampshire, focusing both on the gut-wrenching damage caused by the public health emergency and the administration's new efforts to combat it. Rick Leventhal joins us live from Manchester with more. Good evening, Rick.
Good evening, Shannon. The death rate from drug overdoses in New Hampshire is double the national average. In fact, 70% of the calls that firefighters answer are not for smoke and flames, but for medical issues, primarily drug overdoses. And that's one reason why the president made the Manchester Fire Department his first stop this afternoon to get a first-hand look at their Safe Station program, where addicts are invited to come here before they OD and get fast-tracked into a drug treatment program. In his remarks this afternoon at Manchester College, the president talked about expanding treatment, but focused on getting tougher on drug dealers, suggesting major traffickers should face the death penalty for potentially destroying thousands of lives.
And of all the blue ribbon committees we want, but if we don't get tough on the drug dealers, we're wasting our time. Just remember that. We're wasting our time. And that toughness includes the death penalty.
Focus on preventing Americans from becoming addicted in the first place by finding non-addictive pain medications, and will also punish drug companies and doctors for over-prescribing opioids, cutting prescriptions by a third over the next 3 years. The president also introduced some parents who lost a child, and also introduced some of the agents fighting the criminals on the front lines.
He got hooked on it and had to go to the street eventually, and he found fentanyl, and he's been gone for 2.5 years, and we miss him every day.
It's been an absolute battle. We all work together, and we're going to get this solved.
The president also stressed the importance of building the border wall to stop the flow of illegal drugs from Mexico, and talked about the critical nature of getting rid of sanctuary cities, because he says they are protecting major traffickers.
According to a recent Dartmouth study, the sanctuary city of Lawrence, Massachusetts, is one of the primary sources of fentanyl in 6 New Hampshire counties. ICE recently arrested 15 MS-13 gang members. These are not good people, folks, okay? These are bad, bad people.
Moving forward in the weeks ahead, the president says he will cut drug prices for millions of Americans. But the focus today, Shannon, was on those lives lost. 116 Americans dying every single day from drug overdoses. And the president says if we don't get tough, those numbers won't get any lower. Shannon?
All right. Rick, thank you very much. Well, a brand new addition to the president's legal team, attorney Joe DeGeneva. He's argued actors within the Justice Department are trying to take down the president of the United States.
This is the single most important scandal of the last 50 years, because senior DOJ and FBI officials engaged in conduct that was designed to corrupt an American presidential election. It wasn't the Russians who corrupted the presidential election. It was the American officials at the Department of Justice and the FBI.
Let's talk about it with tonight's panel. Adrian Elrod, former director of strategic communications for Hillary Clinton. Charlie Hertz is the opinion editor for the Washington Times and a Fox News contributor. And Katie Pavlich, Fox News contributor and townhall.com editor. Great to see all of you tonight.
Good evening.
Hi, Shannon.
Okay, so talking about this edition now of Joe DeGeneva, The Hill today says that adding DeGeneva suggests Trump wants to go more on the offensive, given DeGeneva's past statements arguing that investigations of Trump are meritless. The New York Times said he represents an aggressive presence on the team. What do you say, Katie?
Yeah, I think that he certainly has a record in Washington, D.C. of being somewhat of a bulldog. And as the Mueller investigation gets closer to the White House, not in the sense of any wrongdoing, but just in the sense of wrapping up the investigation, the president wants everyone on his team who can defend him against any kind of allegation that the Mueller probe brings. And looking at the fact that we are now a year and plus into this, and when all of the indictments that have come down are unrelated to Russian collusion or the presidential election of 2016, I think the president is doing what he thinks is best in terms of defending himself and making sure he is covered on all bases, and bringing him in as a Washington, D.C. veteran and getting in the dirt, knowing how politics works in that town is probably not a bad idea.
Yeah, and Adrian, clearly the president is going on the offensive. I mean, the tweets this weekend, not restrained
Yeah, not restrained in the least. That's exactly right, Shannon. Look, I think it's clear that President Trump is staffing up. This investigation continues to ramp up by the day. He's obviously adding more to his legal team, and he's adding somebody who agrees more ideologically in his views that there is a deep state that exists within government. So it's no surprise that he's adding attorneys. This also may have to do with the fact that John Dowd made some controversial comments this past weekend about hoping that Rosenstein will end the Mueller investigation now that McCabe is gone. So, there's no telling exactly why he's doing this, really, but it does seem that a lot of this has to do with the fact that the investigation is ramping up.
Well, and Charlie, someone argued that they think the investigation is winding down. We don't know because we're all in the dark kind of waiting for this thing. But you had a piece out yesterday where you talk about the fact that you think that this Mueller investigation, the questioning of Trump's legitimacy, whether he colluded with Russia, all of this, you think you called it a trap that was set before he was even elected.
Well, certainly at the very least, it's a new standard for a president. It used to be, or we've for a long time all agreed upon the way we elect a president. And now we have a new standard for this president. And that is after he gets elected, after he wins the Electoral College, after he wins the primary, after he wins 60 million plus voters votes, we're going to now launch a bogus investigation into everything under the sun that has no limits, and we're going to let the FBI, we're going to let these career investigators, and I'm not criticizing the FBI in general, but we're going to let these people conduct sort of a background check to tell us whether or not this can be our president. It's patently absurd and no way to run elections.
All right, I want to get all of you to respond to these job offers that were floated by Democratic lawmakers for Andrew McCabe because, as a result of him being fired, it's potentially he's going to lose a big chunk of his pension, if not all of it, unless he obtains other federal employment. I don't know the details, but, there's some speculation that these job offers might be a way to solve that problem from him. One of them came from Congressman Gutierrez tweeting this: to Andrew McCabe, if you need a federal job, call me on Monday. I am serious. We have to stand up to bullies like real Donald Trump and Jeff Sessions. Hashtag resist, Twill, Andrew McCabe fired, hashtag stand up to bullies. It goes on and on. So Charlie, I'll start with you. What do you make of it?
Well, just if you ask me, it goes to show just how politicized the whole thing has been from the very beginning. It has nothing to do with justice. It has nothing to do with finding out about Russia's involvement in the election. It has nothing to do with any of that. We could have done all of that in a very nonpartisan way. What it really has to do with is people want to go after Donald Trump, and it's this truly a weaponization of the FBI. And of course, they were all far too many people in the FBI were far too willing to go along with that weaponization, and so we wind up with this, where you have a guy tossed out for apparently lying to FBI officials and then lying to Congress about it, and then people in Congress are scrambling to give him a job. It's insane.
Okay, I need to get quick reaction from Katie and Adrian on that issue of these job offers. Adrian, first to you.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think this is obviously a way for, Seth Moulton and some of these guys to get a little bit of press. I don't know if they're necessarily saying that this is in jest or if they're truly meaning it, but the real issue here is, first of all, we don't know why exactly McCabe was fired. I mean, we know that Jeff Sessions fired him. We have not seen the IG report that came out because it has not come out yet. But this was recommended. His firing was recommended by the Office of Professional Conduct, which is an independent agency within the Department of Justice. So, we got to see what happens and see what happens when this comes out. But I do think that some of these guys, Seth Moulton, some of these Democrats who have said this, think that perhaps it was a cheap shot that Andrew McCabe was fired 36 hours before he would have received his full pension.
Okay.
Well,
okay,
yeah.
Katie, quickly to you.
Yeah, quickly. I just think that it's disservice to the country for Democrats to be coming out on the side of corrupt government officials. Andrew McCabe is being treated just like other FBI agents inside his agency who have been referred by the Inspector General, by the Office of Professional Responsibility, to lose his job for breaking the rules and potentially breaking the law. And for them to come out in his defense when it's a matter of accountability for a government official really is telling about which side of this that they're on.
All right, panel, stick around. We'd love to have you come back to talk about some other topics, but that's it for now. In the meantime, a city in fear. Another bombing in Austin, and this one is more sophisticated. What will it take to crack the case? We've got a live report from Texas.